So this week we're talking about encouraging one. And we oftentimes think about encouraging one another, and that's certainly a very common word. We know what it means to encourage. And I think usually we think of encouragement in the idea of strengthening somebody's mental, emotional well-being. Obviously we encourage our children to do certain things. You see coaches encouraging players on the sidelines. But when we talk about encouragement, I think we need to expand that in that we're talking about encouraging conduct. We're talking about encouraging morality. We're talking about encouraging a specific type of attitude, certainly a positive, Christian, spiritually oriented attitude amongst one another. And so as we're working through this and as you're preparing to do discussion this week, I want you to think of encouragement in that broader term of all the different aspects of life, even in the sense that I think Paul oftentimes, or at least in a couple of instances in the Corinthian church, talks about encouragement as financial help being given to somebody. And as he talks about that, he changes it from encouragement to talking about it being an act of love. But certainly the basis of that encouragement is a financial gift that's being given to the church to help those that are in need. And so encouragement can take many, many different forms. It's not just about, telling somebody to buck up and turn that frown around and all those types of things. It's about really being involved in understanding somebody's real need and encouraging them to do those things which are right and which are proper and which help, or to not do those things which destroy, right? Think about encouraging somebody who's trying to quit smoking. You're not encouraging them to do something, you're encouraging them not to do something, to refrain from something. In Paul's letters, in a couple places where he says encourage one another, he's talking about exactly that. He says, be encouraged in this way. In Hebrews, he says, be encouraged in this way so that your heart does not get hardened. Do not let your heart become hardened this day. And so he's encouraging us to refrain from allowing the pressures of the world to overtake us. Well, how easy is that to apply to today's life and times, where all the different pressures of the work week and of the political landscape and of the financial pressures. Today's March 2nd, by the way, that we're making this. So we just got through 1st of March and all the bills are due and everything else. Worst thing about February, too short a month, right? So you got to pay all your monthly bills in 4 weeks instead of 4 weeks and 3 days. How's that for encouraging? As we talk about refraining from letting all of those pressures get to us, there's a positive side on that, and that's what it means to encourage. We don't tell people on a diet to stop eating. We encourage one another to eat right and to eat what is good. Well, as we talk about encouraging one another this week, we're going to talk about thinking what is right, doing what is right, having our moral compass set to what is right. And ultimately, as that moves from within our community, within the church, to those that we have chosen to pray for and to invest in and to serve, how do we encourage them into a relationship with God? How do we turn our encouragement from being emotional well-being to spiritual well-being? That will be our topic for this week. This week in your discussion group, as you begin, I want you to think about this and discuss it. And most of the time when we're talking about our Christian life and imparting that, we're talking about preparing to do that, or what we need to know, or how we need to behave, or any of those other types of things. If you're going to talk about being an encourager to the people around you, what kind of preparation is necessary for that? What does it take for you to be a good encourager to those around you? All right. For the second question, I want you to think about, in the last week, in what non-spiritual ways have you encouraged people around you? Whether that's with activities, with sports, at work. What are the different things that you do to encourage people into behaviors or into thinking patterns, etc., in a way that's non-spiritual? And from that, leap into how can we redirect those messages into a spiritual encouragement, whether it's with people that are spiritually attuned to us or even those at work, in sports, etc. Is there a way we can do those same types of encouragement but add a spiritual layer to it? In Hebrews chapter 3, the writer uses Old Testament scripture and takes that up to that point in time. And he says, today, as long as it's still called today, do not let your hearts be hardened. And encourages us, instead of having our hearts hardened, to remain faithful. And certainly, we can see how that would relate to one another within the church. My question is this: does that relate, or how can that relate to those that are outside the church, to those that we're trying to reach, to those that we've chosen to serve and to lead and to invest in? How can we encourage them not to be hardened and to become faithful? Last question for this week is, in your groups, discuss the different types of encouragement and how you go about those things. Because encouragement, as we talked about, it's not just about an emotional well-being. Oftentimes, encouragement is about igniting somebody to action. Sometimes it's about getting them to persevere in a certain action, to continue in that action. Sometimes it's just about a mental attitude. And it's about getting out of the doldrums or getting out of a pessimistic state of mind. Sometimes it's about getting over loneliness, getting over psychological disturbances, getting over different things like that, and getting through that. Think about all the different ways that we can encourage both one another in this group, but also those outside. And how is it? What are the best ways to do that? I know it's by words oftentimes, but it's also by companionship. It's also by an investment of time. It's also by a depth of relationship. It's by a lot of different things. So discuss those different aspects of what it means to be an encourager and how we can do that for all those that we come in contact with. As we wrap up this week, I want to encourage you, as I've done at the end of many of these. I want to encourage you to persevere. I want to encourage you to be intentional. I want to encourage you about investing in relationships and people and time, because our mission at Redwood is to make disciples, right? If we're making disciples and teaching them, we're doing the will of God. I want to encourage you to continue to stay in the will of God and to be active and to be doing those things. Have a great week.